We're conditioned in Kenya ever since we're kids to kill animals. We see our parents killing animals. I hunted my first animal when I was 5 years old or something. I followed the older guys into the savannah where they were hunting animals. We don't see animals as beings. When I saw in the duck's eyes, that's the first time I actually saw a being I was killing. When we're children, we see our parents killing animals, our mothers cutting the heads off of chickens, our brothers cutting and killing cows. We don't see animals as living beings. We see them as commodities, as we see them as food. Look in the animal's eyes. When you look in an animal's eyes, you can see someone looking back at you. When you look in a dog's eyes, when you look in a cow's eyes, and a sheep's eye, there's someone there looking back at you.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Foolproof Mastery. I'm joined by Toto Wanje. He's originally from Kenya, now lives in Ireland. He's formerly a chef and now he's running his own businesses. Toto used to have hunting as a big part of his lifestyle back in Kenya before he went vegan. Toto, how did you become vegan?
I've had many different vegan awakenings, and one of the biggest vegan awakenings I had was killing a duck. I was slaughtering a duck. Whilst I was cutting the duck's throat, I've killed many different animals before, but during this moment, it just happened that we ended up in locked eye contact. I've never looked in an animal's eyes whilst I'm killing them, but this time we ended up in locked eye contact. And then whilst I was cutting the duck's throat, we looked in each other's eyes, and I could see in the duck's eyes the pain I was causing her whilst I was cutting her throat. I could see that I was causing her so much pain, and I could see that she was pleading me to stop. I was cutting her, and then I realized, my God, what am I doing? Because I could see in her eyes that I'm causing her so much pain. But somehow I still killed her. Those eyes will never come out of my mind. It'll never disappear from my mind. That day whilst I was cutting her, we were gazing at each other for like at least 5 seconds, and I was thinking, oh my God, why am I killing this duck? That was my first major vegan awakening. Then later that night I was sleeping, I couldn't get those eyes out of my mind. I realized, oh my God, I can't be killing animals anymore. After that, I stopped killing animals. Sometimes when I'm in bed sleeping, I can still remember those eyes. When I was killing the duck, I still killed the duck, even though I could see that it was wrong. Sadly enough, I actually ate the duck that I killed. It's really sad when I think about it myself. But I ate the duck, but I stopped killing animals from that moment. When I came to Europe, a friend of mine sent a movie called Earthlings. I saw all the animal slaughter, all the animal abuse. I started learning more about the meat and dairy industry. That made me realize that, oh my God, what am I doing? I can't contribute to this industry anymore. I can't be paying for to be killing over 60 to 80 billion land animals every year. I became vegetarian after watching Earthlings for a year and a half. I don't know why it was hard for me to quit eating dairy products. I don't want to contribute to the meat, eggs, honey, and dairy industry anymore. Now I've been vegan for 8 years.
For all the years killing animals, what stopped you looking into the eyes?
In Kenya, it has become normalized to kill animals. We start doing it already when we're 5 years old, killing chickens, killing animals. We kill all sorts of animals in Kenya, but at that moment, it just happened that I actually looked in the animal's eyes and I could see a being in there. We're conditioned in Kenya ever since we're kids to kill animals. We see our parents killing animals. I hunted my first animal when I was 5 years old or something. I followed the older guys into the savannah where they were hunting animals. We don't see animals as beings. When I saw in the duck's eyes, that's the first time I actually saw a being I was killing. When we're children, we see our parents killing animals, our mothers cutting the heads off of chickens, our brothers cutting and killing cows. It's something normal ever since we're kids. We don't see animals as living beings. We see them as commodities, as we see them as food. When it happened for me that I was looking in the duck's eyes, I think it was like, I don't know, some people don't believe in maybe spirituality or things like that, but it was a moment, it was like a moment of epiphany. The universe was giving me a moment to help me understand that what I'm doing is wrong, because it just happened that, my God, I'm looking in the duck's eyes and I'm cutting and thinking, what am I doing? There's a being in there. It was a moment from the universe to help me understand that it's wrong to kill animals. Otherwise, we're conditioned as kids to kill animals and to be cruel to animals, and that's almost all over Africa. Here in Europe, children are conditioned to treat certain animals differently than other animals. It's something that happens ever since we're kids. It's not something that we think about, even not just in Africa, but all over the world. I'm glad that the universe gave me that moment to be able to look in the duck's eyes and see, oh my God, there's a being in here. What am I doing? Why am I killing this being? I'm glad that the universe gave me that moment in life.
Perhaps it was your subconscious, almost out of fear, making you avoid making contact with the eyes. Did you tell your friends back in Africa that you had this realization?
I haven't told many people this. I haven't told many of my friends about this moment. Actually, I haven't told anyone in Africa about this moment. It's mostly I've written about it online and told people, told other vegans about this moment, and I've told a lot of people online. But I haven't told any friend about this moment. To be honest, I don't know how they would react if I told them about it. They probably laugh at me or something. I haven't told anyone about it, as in any of my friends. It's mostly people online, and I've written about it on my website. But no, otherwise I haven't told anyone about it. And I've never actually even thought of telling anyone about it. But now that you're saying it, I'm going to start telling more friends about this moment, because it was sort of a great moment and a great experience for me personally to have. I think I should share it with more of my friends. The thing is, I'm the only vegan amongst my friends. I don't speak as in amongst my non-vegan. Well, I'm the only vegan in my village, if that's what I could say. I don't speak much veganism I don't talk about veganism with a lot of my African friends. It's mostly with my European friends that I talk about veganism with. And now that you're saying it, I should share this moment with my African friends to maybe help them wake up and help them realize that it's wrong to kill animals. But otherwise, no, I haven't shared this moment with my African friends.
Have you shared with your African friends that you are vegan?
All my family, they know I'm vegan. My friends, they know I'm vegan. But in Africa, it's a sort of you're seen as a sissy boy if you're vegan. As in that, I don't know, because they for them eating meat is manly, going out and killing animals is manly, and manly. I don't think it's manly, but that's what people think. They know I'm vegan, but I don't talk too much. I don't talk too much about them about veganism. When we're eating dinner, I sort of go to the side myself, because I know they're over there eating their animal products and their meat and all that. I usually step aside and eat my own food, and they kind of look at me weirdly. We haven't had any arguments or anything like that, but they look at me weirdly for not eating meat, and they kind of, not that they make fun of me, but you can get the vibes and the energy that they're kind of trying to not make a laugh out of you or make a joke out of you, but they haven't understood it. But personally, I think that it's all about awakening. Everybody has the opportunity to go vegan. Ella has the ability to go vegan. But now that you're saying it, I should talk more with my African friends about veganism. And it's just that I've kept quiet about it to them, because I sort of kind of know how they're going to react. I don't want to have those arguments with my friends, because it can get heated. And in Africa, ever since we're kids, we fight a lot with each other, and I already know that they look down, kind of look down on me for being vegan. I've kept quiet about it, about veganism. I haven't taken up any discussions trying to start any kind of vegan arguments with them. But now that you're saying it, I'm thinking I should, man, just to wake up our African people, or to wake up my African friends. It's mostly here in Europe that I've kind of not to say dared, but it's that I've spoken about veganism. That I'm always talking about veganism. Now that you're saying it, I should I should be talking more with my African friends about veganism.
Have you been back to Kenya in the last 8 years since you've been vegan, to your village?
I've been back many times. I travel. We're going now in August. I travel all the time to Kenya. Almost every time I'm going back to Kenya. And I'm sort of the outcast now in the village, in the family, because not the outcast as in nobody's hateful or anything like that, but I'm that guy, that vegan guy, that guy who's different, that guy who doesn't eat what we eat. But I've been back many times. But I become the black sheep. I become the weird one, is how to say it, because I'm the one who doesn't. Everyone else is eating meat, and I'm the one who's vegan, who doesn't eat meat. They see me as the weird guy, or because they haven't either understood what veganism is. For example, me personally, I didn't know what veganism was around 10 years ago. I had no idea what veganism was. I've been vegan for 8 years. I was a vegetarian, like I said, for a year and a half. But before that, I had no idea what vegan, as I knew it's something about not eating meat. But I actually had to Google what is veganism. I know this kind of sounds dumb now. I've been vegan for 8 years, but before going vegan, I actually Googled what is I Googled what is veganism in Google search engine, just to find out what is veganism. And then I read it, and then I was reading, oh my God, I don't want to be a part of animal abuse either. I don't want to contribute to animal abuse either. When I was reading it, it kind of clicked with me, and then I decided that this resonates with me, and I decided I'm going to go vegan. I'm going to stop eating meat and contributing to animal abuse. But I hope, no, all my African friends will one day go vegan also, because I'm thinking I can go vegan. I have the ability to go vegan and wake up. Every African on the planet has the ability to go vegan and to one day go vegan, hopefully.
How would you, Toto, explain what is veganism to someone?
Veganism is a way of life where we don't contribute to animal abuse. We don't kill and eat animals. That's how I would explain veganism to anybody, to Africans. I would say, man, we can't be killing the animals. The animals want to be living just like us. I would explain to them that look in the animal's eyes. The way I look in your eyes is the same way that an animal looks in your eyes. When you're looking into an animal's eyes, it's looking right back at you. You can't kill that. We all have a heart. We all have a will to live. We all have eyes. We're all here living, breathing creatures. We all have a body. We all feel pain. We're all sensitive, feeling, emotional beings. We can't go around killing animals. And the way I see it is the world is sort of on us and then the animals. I don't know. It's on humans and then animals. But the way I see it now is it's us, all of us here together. As in we. We're not really that different from the animals, other than that we all have different body types. As in, like a cow has a cow's body, a sheep has a sheep's body, a human has a human's body. But otherwise, we're all here together as divine spiritual beings, as emotional feeling beings. If I was to explain veganism to an African, as I would say, man, we can't go around killing the animals. They want to live just like us. They all feel pain just like us. The same feelings of pain that I have or that you have is the exact same feelings of pain that an animal has. And I would say you don't want somebody to be causing you any pain, and you wouldn't want somebody to be killing you. Then if you don't want that to be done to you, you don't want somebody to be cutting off your head and grilling you and eating you, then we should, as human beings, shouldn't be doing that to other beings, is how I would explain it. I could talk about this all day, but that's how I'm rambling now, but that's how I would explain it to someone. That we're all living beings here, feeling emotional beings, and we shouldn't be killing each other as beings living on this planet. Look in the animal's eyes. When you look in an animal's eyes, you can see someone looking back at you. Like when you look in a dog's eyes, when you look in a cow's eyes, in a sheep's eye, there's someone there looking back at you. You can't kill that and eat that. That's insane to kill someone who's looking right back at you, to kill them, cut their head off, and then take the body, grill it up, and eat it. And that's insane, man. That's how I would explain it to anyone, and especially to Africans.
If someone told you it's not possible to be vegan, would you have a response?
We're killing 80 billion land animals every day. The simplest way for us to all stop contributing to animal abuse is to leave animals off our plate. If I was going to explain it to our child, I would say, look, you have on your plate, you have rice, potatoes, beans, you have a cup of tea or whatever, and then you have a piece of meat there on your plate. If you want to help contributing to animals, if you want to help end animal abuse, take that piece, the simplest thing everyone can do, take that piece of meat off of your plate, leave it alone, and then we can focus on everything else. Then we can focus on animals that dying because in rice cultivation, or animals are dying because of avocados, or animals are dying, insects are dying because of crop deaths or whatever. Then we can focus on that. But the simplest thing everyone can do is, first of all, take the piece of meat off of your plate, leave the meat alone, and stop contributing to animals, stop actively contributing to animals being killed, stop paying for animals to be killed in the meat industry, stop contributing to the deaths of 80 billion land animals. That's the simplest thing everyone can do. Stop eating the animals first. Stop eating the dead and the ones that we're paying for to be killed first. Then we can focus on everything else. If it's animals that are dying for our tea, or if it's animals that are dying in our rice fields or grain fields, then we can focus on that and try to figure out how we can start growing crops in such a way that we minimize animal deaths. For example, virtual farming, where they're farming indoors now, and where less animals are dying, where animals don't need to die for crops to be grown. There will be technologies in the future that will help us to grow crops in such ways that animals won't have to die for us to eat food, for us to survive. But the simplest way for everyone on the planet to stop eating meat is to take the piece of meat off of your plate. How do you do that? Stop buying it. Stop contributing to the meat and dairy industry. Stop paying for animals to be killed. Let's stop doing that first, and then we can concentrate on everything else, on how animals are killed in other areas of life. But we can do many things at the same time. We can whilst we're trying to stop the meat industry. We can try to, as we go along as vegans. Everybody thinks that vegans has all the answers to everything. But the animals are dying for your food as vegans. That's happening, but we're against that also. As in, as vegans, we're trying to do everything. We're trying to minimize animal deaths in every aspect of life. And the simplest way is currently to stop actually eating the animals that we are killing. That's how I would try to explain it to anyone.
Yes, we live in an imperfect world. People still get, for example, hit by cars every day. When people are against veganism, it's ultimately just an inability to get into the victim's shoes and understand. We're really striving to in the future find ways of ultimately minimizing suffering?
In the future, we're going to have technologies that minimize animal deaths. I mean, that's a given. That's going to happen. But first of all, we have to stop eating the animals first. Then we can focus on everything else. As a civilization, in the near future, we're going to have the technologies to grow food where we can minimize animal deaths. But the first thing everyone still has to do is stop actively contributing to animals being killed every single day. Stop buying the animals stop going to the supermarket and buying the actual meat. Just buy the vegan burger instead, or you don't even have to eat vegan burgers to be vegan. Stop buying the meat first. Take the piece of meat off of your plate and then stop buying it, and then we can focus on everything else. In the near future, we're going to have the technologies to grow food where we minimize animal deaths.
You do know that when you buy a burger made from a pig, 100% that this animal was killed for you.
The animals in slaughterhouses and in animal agriculture, they're enslaved. We're breeding them into existence for the sole purpose of killing and eating them. That's completely different to what's happening to animals out in the grain fields, out in the crop fields. Those are accidentally being killed. The animals in the meat and dairy industry, we're breeding them into existence for the sole purpose of killing and eating them. It's two completely different arguments, or two completely different things. Meat eaters, they're trying to use that as an argument. Plus, it's not even the same amount of animals being killed during crop deaths compared to all the amount of animals being killed in the meat and dairy industry. Just imagine the fish industry. Trillions of animals are systematically killed just for people to eat. It's a much larger amount of animals being killed in the meat and dairy industry and in the fish industry than that die in crop deaths. I'm not trying to justify crop deaths, but I'm just saying it's two different arguments. As in, it's two different things that are happening completely. The animals in the crop deaths, they're free out in the wild. They can go live their lives, and they accidentally die. But in the meat industry, we're actively breeding animals into existence for the sole purpose of killing and eating them.
I've heard some people say that it's entirely plausible that crops could minimize the amount of suffering which goes on in the wild, because the wild is a lawless place. There's many bad things which happen in the wild as well. And it's entirely plausible that crops could minimize the amount of suffering which goes on in the wild. I've seen no plausible arguments which say that crops increase the death and the suffering which would otherwise occur in the wild anyway if you did not have these crops. And if people really care about the animals, and there's some people that still believe that plants are sentient, can feel pain, even if you adopt this position, you're going to cause less suffering by eating plants, because if you eat a cow, you're eating the plants which the cow ate as well. There's energy that the cow loses. Even to still man the position, because some people still believe that plants are sentient, even though they don't have a central nervous system. Even if you care about plants, just eating plant-based as a vegan will lead to less amount of suffering.
It's crazy how meat eaters, they say plants feel pain. Personally, when I was, even before I went vegan, I would have never said that, well, cutting a carrot or cutting an onion or whatever is the same thing as cutting the head off of a pig or a cow or a goat. It's insane that meat eaters can say such a thing, that plants feel pain. I think it's kind of a defense mechanism, because meat is kind of like, I think people are addicted to meat, kind of like a heroin drug or something. When you try to stop a heroin drug from using drugs, then they're going to use every argument on the planet they can find to continue taking the heroin. It's the same thing with meat now. When we're trying to tell people that don't eat meat, they're addicted to meat. They're going to use every argument possible to continue eating meat. They're coming with plants feel pain. I mean, who actually believes? No, I don't know. Maybe let's say some trees somewhere. I don't know. Maybe plants do feel pain, but cutting a carrot, because sitting at home and cutting vegetables and cutting the head off of a pig, it's kind of ridiculous. It's not the same thing. As in, children should. As in, I don't even want to name children, but people should understand this. Cutting a carrot at home and cutting the head off of a pig it's not the same thing. It's kind of a ridiculous argument to say, oh, but plants feel pain. It's cutting lettuce at home is not the same thing as how can anybody actually believe that cutting cabbage or cutting lettuce or cutting apples is the same thing as cutting the head off of a pig or of a sheep. I had a friend on Facebook, a meat eater. He said something like this. He said plucking apples from a tree, he said, is the same thing as cutting the head off of a sheep. He told me. I was was like, oh my God, what are you saying? What are you saying, man? It's insane that people actually believe that meat eaters actually believe that cutting plants feel pain. And even if plants feel pain, killing an animal is not the same thing as cutting carrots or cutting vegetables. It's sort of a ridiculous argument, and I hope in the near future that people start seeing that saying something like that is a bit ridiculous in my own personal opinion.
Imagine if a murderer used the same justification and said, I'm killing people to eat because plucking apples off of trees.
I'm killing people because people in the Amazon jungle are cutting down trees. The same plants feel pain because the trees in the jungle are being cut down. I'm cutting people's heads off. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. There's a wood chopper or something in the wood. He's cutting down trees. Why can't I kill people? Why can't I cut people's heads off? There's somebody cutting down trees. It doesn't compute. It doesn't go together. It's a completely ridiculous argument to say plants feel pain, but plants feel pain. That's why I'm eating meat. It doesn't go together.
On your website, I saw a very interesting story to do with snails.
I was walking home. I wasn't vegan. It was many years ago. That was another vegan awakening I had. And I was walking home. I was drunk one night, and then it was sort of raining as the snails come out in the rain. It was sort of raining, and then I was walking behind a girl, and I was sort of drunk. I had no interest in the girl at all. We were going the same way home. And then I saw her. All of a sudden, she bent down sort of, and then she started picking the snails. And I stopped. I was wondering, what is she doing? I'd never seen this before in my life. She bent down and started picking the snails, and then going back and picking the snails and going over and putting them on the grass on the footpath. She started picking them up and putting them up, and I was shocked, man. I was like, oh my God! Now I understood straight away why she was doing it, because because I could see that she was trying to save their lives, because she knew that I understood from that moment that when we walk on the path and the snails are coming in the rain, then we trample on the snails, and some of us, we don't even think about it. We trample on the snails, kill them, and we continue walking. But from that moment I realized, my God, what an amazing human being. I still continued eating meat after that, but that moment was like another moment from the universe where I was seeing, oh my God, what an amazing human being. She's actually saving the snails. And it was from there I realized that snails are their own, they're all their own emotional, feeling, breathing beings, that she started picking them up and putting them on the other side of the footpath. She went back a couple of times, maybe 3 or 4 times, and picked 3-4 different snails and put them over. Myself, I was a little bit drunk. So I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. It was like, holy Christ, she's trying to save the snails. It was an amazing moment for me. And then years later, then when I became vegan, I realized, or I don't know, maybe she was probably vegan. I'm starting to think she must have been vegan, because that someone can do that is it's an amazing feeling in your heart to save a snail, to pick a snail and go all the way over to the other path just to save that snail's life. That's someone to do that. In my opinion, they would be vegan, or they have a vegan heart at least. Now that I'm vegan, it's hard to save every snail, but when it's raining and I'm walking on the footpath, I try to save a few snails. Or when I'm walking, especially when it rains, when I'm walking, then I try to make sure that I don't trample on the snails. It's hard not to do it. It often happens that you trample on the snail even though you try not to, because a lot of the snails, there's always a lot of snails when it rains crossing the footpath. It's always difficult to not trample on them. But nowadays, I try not to trample on the snails, and whenever I can, I try to pick a snail and put it on the other side of the footpath. It was an amazing moment to see someone doing that. I thought, oh my God, what a heart this person has. And it was from that moment that helped me now to start saving snails.
But it's crazy that there's so many non-vegans who do the same thing. They move the snails off the footpath and then they just buy animal products for dinner. A lack of logical consistency.
It's a disconnection, as in people are disconnected from the food they're eating. It's the same thing as people who there's a farm here near where I live, where people go there and they go there with their children to pet. It's like a petting zoo, but I don't know if it is a petting zoo, but it's a farm anyway. And people go there to have fun with the animals, to interact with the animals, to go there with their families, with their children. But then whilst they're petting the animals, as in it's goats, sheep, but there's cows there, there's chickens and there's rabbits, and there's pigs also. But when they're petting the animals, they're eating their hamburgers, and there's a grill there on the farm. And I was there one time myself. Well, I'm usually there. They're petting and playing with the animals. They're grilling animals at the same time and eating hamburgers and eating sausages. Me, when I'm there looking at them, thinking, my God, they have no idea what they're petting a goat whilst eating a hamburger. That's insane. It's a complete disconnection. People are disconnected. They don't understand that the animals they're eating are actually the same animals that petting and playing with. But it's the same thing with people who go to zoos, circuses, rodeos, and SeaWorld, all and Disney World. All these places, they sell animals. They sell murdered animals as food for people to eat. People go there to see all these amazing animals at the zoo, to watch the elephants and to see the zebras. But at the same time, whilst they're there to see the animals, at the same time, the zoo sells animals for people to eat. It's a complete disconnection. People don't understand that the animals they're eating are the same animals that they're either playing with or petting or at the zoo to see. But I understand what you mean when you say people, they save snails and then they go home and buy meat or buy hamburgers. It's a complete disconnection. We have to find a way to connect the mind of humanity, or connect the people from the pigs they're eating and the dog that they're petting, or the zebra they're seeing at the zoo, and the cow burger they're eating. Or we have to try to connect it. It's a complete disconnection of the mind in people's minds. It becomes clear in people's mind not to eat humans, or that they wouldn't eat humans, that they wouldn't eat human beings at a hospital. But people eat hamburgers at a zoo, or eat hamburgers at a petting zoo. It's a complete disconnection.
In Africa, most are actually plant-based. Is this correct?
I wouldn't say they don't see. That's the thing now. They don't see themselves as plant-based. They don't, as in most people in the villages in Africa, they are, as in they don't see themselves as plant-based or vegan or vegetarian. But that's sort of the lifestyle they live. For example, when I was, because in at least in my part of Africa, eating meat is relatively expensive. As in, you're not going to be buying meat every day. We don't get to eat meat every day because we're eating plant-based food mostly. Just because it's relatively expensive to be eating meat every day. And even though we have animals, we have cows, pigs, goats, chickens, we don't kill those animals every day I don't do it anymore, but people don't kill those animals every day just to eat them, because it will cost a lot. For example, killing a cow or killing a chicken every day, killing a cow can cost up to maybe, what would say, $100, $1,000 a cow. It depends on. Cows are very expensive in Kenya. Chickens, people, they breed those chickens as a form of business to sell those animals and to sell the chickens eggs, or to sell the goats, or to sell the cow's milk. So they don't kill those animals every day just to eat them. A lot of African women and African men and children in Kenya, in Africa in general, eat plant-based diets, even though they don't see themselves as plant-based. They probably don't even know what plant-based is, but that's the diet that they're accustomed to, or that's the diet that they eat, and that's the diet that we ate when we were in Kenya. When I was living in Kenya, we ate meat maybe once a month, maybe once or twice a month, if even that. Otherwise, we were eating beans, rice, maize flour, rice, potatoes, beans. These are the dishes that we're eating. And it's not that we want to be plant-based. It's that we have no other alternative than to eat plant-based food, because you're not going to spend your money on buying meat every day. You're not going to go, like here in Europe, you can go down to the supermarket and buy meat in the supermarket, as in cheap meat in the supermarket. Killing a chicken in Kenya can mean not mean bankruptcy, but you're not going to start killing your chickens every day just to eat them. Instead, you'd rather sell that chicken and earn money, maybe use that money to pay for your children's school fees, or use that money to go buy a packet of rice rather than kill the chicken and eat the body. Then your business is disrupted just by killing even just one chicken. That's why most of the diets that we eat are plant-based, even though we don't see ourselves as vegans or plant-based or being plant-based. It's the diet that we regularly eat. That's why it will be easy. It's going to be easy for a lot of Africans to go vegan. We just have to let them understand that you're already eating this diet already anyway. As in, you're not eating meat every day anyway. Just stop eating the meat altogether. As in, many people in Africa are eating plant-based diet. It mostly applies to the people in the villages, in the village area. People living in the towns, they're trying to live like Europeans and Americans. They're trying to live the Western life where they go to restaurants every day and eat. They eat a lot of meat. But people out in the village areas, we are the ones who are eating mostly plant-based diets. And it applies to both men and women, men, women and children. As kids, when we were kids, the only way for us sometimes to get meat was to start hunting our own meat. That was the only way we were able to get meat. As we're growing up as teens, becoming teenagers, we start hunting and going out into the savannah to hunt animals to get meat, just because we don't get meat at home, because we were eating plant-based diets at home. We ourselves find our own ways to go out hunting animals, like killing birds and hunting animals out in the savannah, just so that we can get meat. It applies to plant-based diets. Plant-based diets apply to mostly people out in the villages, both men, women, and children. As kids, we didn't get meat. The only way for us to get meat was to go out into the savannah and hunt for our own meat. That was the only way, because our parents wouldn't allow us to start killing the chickens just that we would eat them. Our parents would rather that we sold the chickens instead of killing them and eating them.
If you didn't hunt, you had to
Yeah.
eat grains and beans.
Exactly. That's how it is. That's how it is in Kenya. If you don't have money for meat, if you don't go out hunting, then what you have to eat is a plant-based diet. Beans, grains, legumes, rice, a lot of rice. We have something called maize flour in Kenya. It's called ugali. It's a staple food in Kenya. That's what we're eating. It's sort of like, I don't want, this is not what it is, but it's to sort of explain it. It's like mashed potatoes. It's not mashed potatoes, but just to sort of explain it. It's like eating mashed potatoes every day. We have ugali. It's maize flour. That's what we're eating every day. Almost every day with everything. Rice, ugali. We don't eat a lot of pasta, but rice and ugali and potatoes is what we're eating. If you don't go out hunting, and if you don't have the money for meat, and if you're not killing your own chickens, then a plant-based diet is what most people eat in Kenya. And it's normal. But people, they don't see themselves as plant-based. They probably don't even know what plant-based is. We don't even have plant-based, the word plant-based in my language. We don't even have the word vegan in my language. But these diets are normal to people already, even though they don't think of it that way themselves.
Did you ever grow your own crops?
Most people in Kenya, they grow their own food. We grow our own crops, our own maize, tomatoes, paprikas. We grow our own foods, watermelons. We grow our own food. Like in Kenya, where I'm living, we have oranges, mangoes already growing in the garden, as in orange trees. They have orange trees in the garden, as in growing naturally. And we grow our own food, tomatoes. Right now in Kenya, we're planting watermelons, and we're planting maize fields, maize corn. A lot of people in Kenya grow their own crops, onions, potatoes. A lot of people in Kenya grow their own crops. A lot of people, let me rephrase that. A lot of people in the villages in Kenya grow their own crops. The only thing that we don't grow is rice, because we go and buy the rice. We use money to go and buy rice. Otherwise, we grow everything ourselves.
Is this like a team effort from the whole village? Does each house have a little garden where they grow their own stuff, or is it like a whole area belonging to the whole village?
It's a whole area belonging to the whole village, where it's a huge, I think it's like 1,000 acres of land or something, I don't know, but it's a whole area. I might be wrong on the number there, but it's a whole area where, as a village, we all work together to cultivate the land and to grow crops on the land, and then everyone helps out when it comes to harvesting the crops. Then everybody helps out to harvest the crops. We work together as a community. Everybody helps out, including the children, to harvest, to grow, and to take care of the land.
That's amazing, because working together really helps out. And I was thinking more maybe every house has its own little allotment, but it's great that you all cooperate together.
Everyone has their own piece of land where they can grow their own food, but at the same time, everybody still helps out. As in, if my neighbor needs help to harvest his crops, then we go out and we help him, even though he might have his own piece of land. If he needs some food from us, then he comes and he can come and take from us. As in, we all help each other, even though everyone has their own piece of land to grow their own food. We all still help each other to grow the food, to take care of the land, and to harvest the food, even though everyone has their own piece of land. Everyone still shares anyway.
If I understood correctly, it's a massive piece of land, and inside the land there's different sections which belong to different people, and they take what is theirs and then give it to the family. Is that correct?
Sort of. It's like a huge area, as in our village area is a huge area, and then on that huge area there's houses in different areas. There's houses, as in there's mud huts in different. But that's what it is. There's mud huts in different areas, and then there's land. There's certain land designated for growing food, and then on this land anyone can grow their food, and we all help out. It's sort of normal for us, even though someone is growing food on their own piece of land. There's nothing wrong with going there and helping them to harvest those crops. As in, everyone helps each other, even though they grow their own food on their own piece of land. Everyone still helps out to take care of those crops and to harvest those crops. For example, if our family has been growing maize fields on our piece of land, when it's time to harvest those crops, then all the children, all the teenagers from the other houses, from the other, my cousins and brothers and sisters, my cousins from the other mud huts, even people from other villages, they all come and help to harvest the crops. We all help each other.
I heard lots of people saying, you cannot grow anything in Africa, but it's amazing that you're cultivating stuff. I've heard that in dry land, it's very easy to grow hemp.
Yes, there is a lot of dry land in Kenya, in Africa, where you can't grow anything. That's true. There is a lot of dry land in Africa, and to grow food in Africa, you need rain and you need a lot of water. But that's why specifically we grow maize, because maize doesn't need a lot of water to grow. But like you're saying, there is areas in Africa, in Kenya, where you can grow a lot of food, and there are areas that are really dry and where there's a lot of drought. But it is true. But there are areas in Kenya where we can grow food, where we can grow crops. But hemp, no, we don't grow any hemp. I've heard of it, but currently we don't grow any hemp in my area, in my village area. I don't know.
Nicholas Carter, he runs plant-based data, and he says that hemp you can almost grow anywhere in the world, including Africa, and it's very high in protein. Moving on, regarding slavery, the horrible things which have happened in the past, is it fair to compare what is happening with animals and their rights violations? Is this a fair comparison, or does this generate anger? Some people around the world, they're eating animals out of pure necessity, where they have no options, maybe in some places in the North Pole. Is it fair to make this comparison, or would we make more of a difference by just avoiding the comparison and focusing more on what is happening to animals, and that there are alternatives?
First of all, this is a very emotional topic for Africans, for Black people and Africans. But what I can say first of all is that every African and Black person is different, as in we all think differently. As in one African vegan is not going to think this. It's the same as vegans. One vegan thinks differently from another vegan. One white person thinks differently from another white person. One Black person thinks differently from another Black person. But in my own personal opinion, myself, I'm even scared to draw this comparison that you're saying. But in my opinion, it's not fair to the animals to compare slavery I don't even want to say that, but I'm on that level of understanding in life where it is fair. It's a fair comparison to compare the animal holocaust with slavery. Because, like you said, in fact, what we're doing to animals is worse than what humans have ever done to each other. It's worse than, because even all through slavery, whether it was Africans who were held as slaves, or Irish people who were held as slaves, or whoever was held as slaves, like, humans weren't eating those slaves. We're eating the animals. Even though humans were even breeding slaves into existence, that happened where Africans were forced to breed with each other to produce more children so that the white people could have slaves. That happened. They weren't breeding slaves into existence for the purpose of killing and eating them. In my opinion, it is a fair comparison, and in my own opinion, it actually isn't a fair comparison. It's not fair to the animals, because we're breeding animals into the existence for the sole purpose of eating them. When white people had slaves, they weren't actually eating slaves, as in they weren't eating them. We're eating the animals, as in it is a fair comparison, but in my own opinion, it isn't, because it's not fair to the animals, because what we're doing to the animals is worse than anything slavery anything that has ever happened in slavery, because we're killing the animal. We're breeding the animals for the sole purpose of killing them and eating them. We're actually eating them. We're not just enslaving them. For me, what we're doing to the animals is worse than slavery. In my own personal Black opinion, it's worse than slavery. Even though I've been through a lot of racism, I've been through that. I've been through that myself. I've had a lot of racism. I used to be that Black guy who was sort of against, well, not against white people, but I was that Black power kind of guy. But then when I became vegan, I started realizing that what we're doing to the animals, it is worse than anything any human has ever done to another slave. Or it's worse than slavery, because we are killing and actually eating the animals. That's what makes it worse, in my opinion. It makes it worse than slavery. That's my own personal opinion as a Black man, that what we're doing to the animals is worse than slavery, in my own opinion, because we're breeding them for the sole purpose of giving them life, just so that we can kill and eat them. White people weren't eating slaves. We're eating the animals. We're actually killing and eating them. In my opinion, it's worse. It is a fair comparison.
How would you respond to someone that says we need to eat animals?
There is no justification on the planet for eating animals. So I don't see any more justification for killing animals. We don't need to. That's sort of a ridiculous argument, because as vegans, there's millions of vegans on the planet where we're all alive, healthy, living healthy lives. We don't need to eat, and we don't need to eat meat to survive. I don't know, my own hardline view when it comes to Inuits or people living in areas where they have to kill animals to to eat meat. Well, move. They don't have to live there. Nobody's. Okay, I don't want to be like that, but that's my own personal opinion. They don't have to live there. If they really, if an Inuit or someone living in the North Pole really wants to go vegan, then you're going to have to move to somewhere where you can have access to plant-based food. That you don't have to be killing animals to survive. As in, we don't have to as human beings. We don't have to kill animals to survive. I mean, we've already seen. As vegan, we're proving that every day that we don't have to kill animals to survive. Whether if it's somebody in Mongolia or in the Amazon forest or in Africa somewhere where they don't have access to plant-based food, well then, if you really want to go vegan and you want to contribute to a better world, to creating a better world for the planet, then you're going to have to move to a place where you can get access to plant-based food. As in, that's my own hardline viewpoint of it, because the problem is, meat eaters, if you tell them that, they usually use that argument. They say, but Inuits need to eat animals to survive. They use that as an argument justification for themselves to continue eating meat. They say, but the people in the Amazon have to kill animals every day to eat. Then my own hardline response to that is they don't have to live there. They can move from there. No, as in, that's my own personal, this isn't another vegan's point of view. This is my own personal view, because meat eaters, they use that. They say, but Inuits have to kill animals to eat, but they don't have to actually live there. Nobody's forcing them to live there. As in, we're not Inuits and we're not people living in the Amazon. We don't have to eat meat to survive. If you're living in an area where where your only food is dead animals, then you're going to have to move if you want to contribute to creating a better world for every being that's living here. Then you're going to have to move or find a way to eat plant-based food somehow.
This is why I think it's very important for the whole world to cooperate, because we have enough food, enough plants to provide for more than 9 billion people. The problem is that you cannot always grow the crops near all the people.
You can't grow the food, you can't grow the crops near all the people, but as a global civilization, if we're going to move towards a vegan sustainable economy, and we want to stop contributing to animal abuse, and we want to end the suffering of 80 billion land animals killed every year, then we're going to have to find ways to provide these people with food. I mean, all the food, if we let's say tomorrow morning we stop killing 80 billion land animals, all those grains and legumes that those animals are eating, what are we going to do with them? Then we can find a way to transport that food to the Inuits or to people in areas where they're living where they can't grow the food. Then let's use all that money and transportation and all everything involved in that process that we've been using to feed the 80 billion land animals. Let's use all that to feed the people living in areas where they can't grow food instead of feeding 80 billion land animals every year.
We really need to cooperate to move the food to where it's needed. We cannot be separate countries. The whole world needs to have massive shift and just cooperate, because we're all the same at the end of the day. Every sentient being, everything on the planet. That's the only way we can solve this problem, in my opinion.
Oh, I fully agree with you, man. We have to cooperate. That's the only way it's gonna work out. That's the only way we can create a better world for everyone living here. Is that we cooperate.
Regarding people in these survival situations, it doesn't make them a bad person that they have been doing this, killing sentient beings for survival, because they just don't know. It's been ingrained in their culture, but not everything in culture is always good. In addition to moving food, I think we need to educate these people that they can survive without killing animals. This is another step. I think education as well, if we really want to solve this problem.
Yeah, of course. And education is core. Is the core is one of the most important things of veganism. Is we have to educate people. My God, we have to find ways to start educating people all over the world, as in these areas where they're killing animals to survive. I don't know. We have to find ways to educate them on what's going on in the world. Educate them about the plant-based diets. I mean, we're going to have to do that. Yeah. Later on, I believe that veganism will be taught in schools. Veganism should be taught in all schools, and schools, universities, colleges. Veganism should be taught to children already in kindergarten, in my opinion. But we're going to have to educate the world somehow. We're going to have to, as activists, we're going to have to take veganism to a whole new level of activism. As in, street activism is wonderful and all that, but we're going to have to take veganism to a whole new level of educating people. As in, not just educating people in schools, but going out to villages and educating people in villages where they're killing animals animals every day, or going out to the Amazon or wherever it is that people are killing and eating animals. We're going to have to go there and start educating them about. I don't know how it's going to be done, but education is one of the core things of veganism. As in, it's intrinsic to veganism that we're going to have to educate people and cooperate in bringing knowledge to all these people living in these areas where they're killing animals to survive.
Unfortunately, I think it's a bit unrealistic to think that we can change everyone who's already just dead set in their mind. But what we can do is we can start with kids who are still learning, and we can really influence them if we tell them and educate them. It really needs to become a fundamental part of the school system, because someone who's 80, it's a lot more difficult to change than a 4-year-old.
Someone who's 80, someone who's even, someone who's 18 is harder to change than someone who's 10 years old. As in, we're going to have to start educating the children about veganism, because it's going to be much easier to educate children about veganism than it is to even educate a 20-year-old about veganism. Because a 20-year-old has already been living in this meat-based society and has been conditioned to contribute to animal abuse. It's going to be much easier to educate 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds than it is to educate 80-year-olds or 20-year-olds or 40-year-olds. We should direct much of our vegan education to children, because it will be much, not much easier, but it'll be easier to change the world into a vegan world if we educate children about veganism than it is to educate grown-ups about veganism. Everyone has the ability to change, but grown-ups are already indoctrinated into the meat-based world that we live in. It's going to be harder to, or it is harder to educate a grown-up about veganism than it's going to be to educate a child about veganism. A child their mind is still open about the world, and a child still has their intrinsic love for animals, as in it hasn't been indoctrinated out of them. It hasn't been conditioned out of them. It would be much easier to educate a child about, in my opinion, it would be much easier to educate a child about veganism than it is to educate a grown-up, even though everybody has the ability to change.
Well, we need a systemic change. We need to change the whole system, and from that we need to start with education. That is really fundamental. I'm guessing there are not that many vegans from Africa, and even less vegan activists. Do you know any other vegan activists from Africa apart from yourself?
No, I don't know anyone personally, any vegan animal rights activists from Africa, and there aren't many African vegans at the moment, but they're coming. We're coming. We have to. But no, I don't know any other vegan animal rights activists. Maybe there are some. There is someone. As in, I personally don't know anyone who is a vegan animal rights activist, an African vegan animal rights activist. But we're coming. There's many Africans who take care of animals in Africa, as in the poaching industry and all that, who take care of wild animals in Africa. But I'm not sure if they're all vegans. That's the thing. There's a lot of, in the world, there's a lot of animal rights activists, but a lot of those animal rights activists are not vegans. And there's a lot of people who take care of animals in the world, but the many people who take care of animals are not vegan. It's the same thing in Africa. There's a lot of people who take care of animals, a lot of Africans who take care of animals, but at the end of the day, they go home and eat meat. They go home and eat chickens, cows, pigs, and goats, even though they might be taking care of lions. And as in, there's a lot of animal rights activists, a lot of people taking care of animals in Africa, but at the end of the day, many of them are not actually vegan. But we will be able to help them go vegan one day, and hopefully we will be able to help them go vegan. Hopefully we help them go vegan.
I saw another vegan activist from Africa, Tanzania. Maybe I can get you guys to do a conversation.
His name is Abbas. I know exactly who you mean. That would be amazing.
Should more Africans become animal rights activists, and why?
Yes, absolutely. More Africans have to become vegan animal rights activists, because in my opinion, there are a lot, like I said before, there's a lot of animal rights activists in the world, but at the end of the day, they go home and eat meat. As in, there's a lot of people who work with animals. At the end of the day, they go home and eat meat. There's a lot of animal rights activists already in Africa, but they're not vegans. More Africans need to become a vegan animal rights activist, as in they have to become vegan and stop eating meat, and then vegan animal rights. That's what people have to become, vegan animal rights activists, people who are animal rights activists and don't eat meat. Why? Because we have to change the world. We can change not just Africa, we can change Africa. We can change everything on the planet. We can, like we already know as vegans, all the grains that are fed to hungry animals, or that are fed to animals in the meat industry, all those grains, we could use them to feed starving people in Africa. As vegan and as African vegan animal rights activists, if we educate our own African people about veganism, we can benefit from it in so many different ways. Vegan businesses, they are being started up in different areas in Africa, but the more vegan animal rights activists there are in Africa, the easier it will be to change Africa and to change Africa's economy into a vegan sustainable economy. We have to, in order to develop and to follow along with the world. There aren't many vegan meat substitutes in Africa right now. Just that as an example. If there were more vegans demanding it, then there would be, or if there was a vegan market in Africa for vegan meat substitutes, then there would be, those products would be sold in Africa. But we have to, in order to help ourselves as a people, we have to become African vegan animal rights activists to help Africa grow and to follow along with the world. It's to help ourselves grow as a people. Veganism will help us grow as a people. It will help us thrive as a people. Not only better our health. Many different vegan businesses can be started all over Africa just to help rural areas. Something as simple as growing our own vegan food that can help many different villages in Africa. We have to take care of all the wildlife in Africa, all the beautiful animals in Africa, all of our beautiful animals, the elephants, the tigers, the cheetahs, the giraffes. We have to start taking care of these animals, the hippos, the rhinos. We have to become vegan animal rights activists to take care of all the wild animals in Africa. Animals are going extinct in all over Africa. That's why we have to become vegan animal rights activists and start implementing measures that will take care of the animals, so that we can take care of all the animals in Africa.
If someone says in Africa we should focus on solving starvation rather than animal rights, how would you respond to this?
I would say that we can do well if we focus on animal rights. Then we will end starvation, because in Africa, vast amounts of land, as in there's, I don't know how, there's a lot of land is sold off to European corporations, and these European corporations then they grow these crops on that land, and then those crops are then shipped to overseas to feed animals in the Western countries. Then those animals are then, as in that food that is grown on that African land, is then shipped to America, to Western countries to feed animals and those animals are then killed just for people to eat. If we work on we have to do both, as in if we solve the issue of animal rights and give animals their rights, then we can solve, and as in if we stop breeding billions of animals into existence for the sole purpose of killing them, then we can feed all those grains to our own hungry people in Africa. We can solve starvation by helping the world go vegan, or by helping Africans to go vegan. As in, we have to do both. As in, it has to go together. As in, if we stop feeding 80 billion land animals every year, then all that land that's sold off to European corporations that grow food just to feed animals in the Western countries, we can feed those grains to our own hungry people, to our own starving people. That's how I would respond to that and say we can do both. If we solve the animal rights, if we solve the animal rights issues on the planet, then we can end starvation by doing so.
Amazing answers. People can find your work on your website, you're on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I'll link all of these in the show notes for people to find you. Do you have any closing remarks to end this conversation?
Closing remarks, I don't know, but veganism is my life right now. Closing remarks, I would say myself, I've been an animal rights activist now for six years. I would urge every vegan on the planet to become an animal rights activist. As in, animal rights activism doesn't have to be street activism. It doesn't have to be out in the streets. You don't have to be an animal rights activist like Joey Strong. You don't have to be an animal rights activist like Earthlings Z. Animal rights activism can be writing books. It can be making movies. It can be making art. It can be music. It can be what I would say to every vegan is find something that you love doing. Find whatever it is, if it's drawing, if it's writing books, if it's cooking, if it's whatever it is, find something that you love doing and incorporate animal rights activism into that. If you like writing songs, write about animal rights, make music about animal rights. Activism doesn't have to be like Joey Carbstrong. I mean, Joey Carbstrong is amazing, but it doesn't have to be like Earthlings said. It doesn't have to be. We as people have to find our own gifted, talented ways of doing activism. As in, try to find. That's why I'm saying I urge everyone to become an animal rights activist, but do it in the way that you love, that you want to do. As in, if you love writing, write about animal rights activism. You like cooking, cook vegan food, teach people to cook vegan food. You like public speaking. Do you like teaching children? Teach children about veganism. You like making music. Make music about animal rights. I urge every vegan on the planet to do whatever they can for animal rights and for veganism, and find a way that you love doing. Find something that you love doing and incorporate animal rights and veganism into that, and that becomes a form of animal rights activism.
Brilliantly said. I completely agree. It's the most rewarding thing you can do. Thanks a lot for joining. It was a very insightful conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for tuning in. You can support Foolproof Mastery in a number of ways. First of all, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a review on Apple Podcasts with an honest opinion of what you think. Leave plenty of comments on YouTube and share with your friends, family and colleagues if you feel that you have learned something new, in order to keep on getting the knowledge out to as many people as possible. Finally, keep on living every day to the maximum, and see you next time for another episode. Ciao.